I never thought I'd be that girl. You know, the one everyone loves to hate in those trashy reality shows, but here we are. I'm Lorelai, 27, and I'm about to tell you how I became the villain in someone else's story. Or at least that's how Sterling sees it. Between us, I think he's just playing victim because he couldn't handle that his brother was better for me than he ever was. It all started 4 years ago when I was struggling to make rent on my place. I just gotten my first real job after college, and let me tell you, entry-level pay is a joke these days. I needed a roommate as soon as possible, and that's when Sterling entered the picture. He was 25, kind of quiet, worked these long hours at his job, and needed a place to stay. I was doing him a favor, honestly. My apartment was in a way better location than anything he could afford on his own. We started as roommates, but one thing led to another. You know how it goes. Late nights talking on the couch, ordering takeout, watching movies. Before I knew it, we were a couple. He wasn't exactly what I would call my type, but he was reliable. Steady job, paid his share on time, didn't leave dishes in the sink. Basic stuff that shouldn't be impressive, but somehow is when you're dating in your 20 seconds. About a year into our relationship, Sterling's younger brother, Kalen, started coming around more often. And girl, the moment I saw Kalen walk through our door, something just clicked. He had this confidence that Sterling completely lacked. Where Sterling was cautious, Kalen was bold. Where Sterling overthought everything, Kalen just went for it. And let's be real, Kalen was just more attractive. Better style, better hair, worked out more. You could tell they were brothers, but Kalen just got all the good genes. Sterling's in the shower, I told Kalen one Saturday morning when he showed up unannounced. He'll be out in a minute. That's cool, Kalen said, dropping onto our couch like he owned the place. I'm not in a rush. The way he looked at me made my stomach do this little flip thing. How's living with my big bro treating you? On the outside, I smiled politely. Good. Sterling's great. In my head, I was thinking how Sterling had spent the entire previous night talking about his work drama instead of noticing my new haircut. Kalen noticed, though. Your hair looks nice, he said like he could read my thoughts. Sterling mentioned you got it done. Spoiler alert. Sterling had not mentioned it because Sterling hadn't even noticed. As the months went by, Kalen started dropping by more often. Sometimes when he knew Sterling would be working late, we'd talk for hours about everything and nothing. He'd compliment me in ways Sterling never did. Made me laugh, made me feel seen. Sterling's lucky, Kalen told me once, while we were waiting for Sterling to get home. I keep telling him that, but I don't think he realizes what he has. Inside I was thinking, if you were me, would you even notice? But I just smiled and changed the subject. Don't get me wrong, Sterling wasn't a bad guy. He was just boring, safe, the kind of guy who plans his vacation 6 months in advance and gets stressed if the hotel doesn't look exactly like the pictures online. Meanwhile, I'm someone who likes a little spontaneity, a little excitement. Sterling had his 5-year plan all mapped out, and I was apparently just a checkbox on it. House by 30, kids by 32, retirement account already growing. On paper, perfect. In reality, I was suffocating. When you're with someone who doesn't really see you, doesn't challenge you or excite you, you start to disappear a little bit. I started wearing what Sterling liked, watching what Sterling watched, going where Sterling wanted to go. I lost myself trying to be someone he'd actually pay attention to. Kalen saw the real me, though. He'd catch my eye when Sterling said something particularly boring at family dinners, and I'd have to hide my smile. He'd text me random jokes during the day that he knew would make me laugh. Nothing inappropriate at first, just friendly. But there was always this undercurrent, this tension. I told myself we were just friends, that it was normal to get along with your boyfriend's brother. That the way my heart raced when I heard Kalen's car pull up was just because he brought excitement into our otherwise predictable life. Looking back, I was already emotionally cheating long before anything physical happened. I'd compare Sterling to Kalen constantly. Why couldn't Sterling be more spontaneous? Why didn't Sterling make me laugh like that? Why didn't Sterling look at me the way Kalen did? By our 3rd year together, Sterling and I were just going through the motions. We didn't fight. Fighting would have required passion, and we didn't have that. We just existed. Existed like furniture. I'd watch him sitting there on the couch, scrolling through his phone and think, is this really it? Is this all I get? Meanwhile, Kaylin was texting me almost daily. Nothing explicitly crossing lines, but definitely walking right up to them. Saw this and thought of you, he'd write, sending me a meme or a song he knew I'd like. And the worst part, I looked forward to those texts more than I looked forward to seeing Sterling at the end of the day. I knew it was wrong. I knew I should either fix things with Sterling or end them. But the apartment was in my name, and Sterling had been helping with bills for so long that I wasn't sure I could afford it on my own anymore. So, I stayed and I let those texts from Kaylin become the highlight of my days. That's how it starts, you know. Not with some dramatic moment of passion, but with 1,000 tiny choices that lead you down a path you never thought you'd take. I was setting us all up for disaster, and I didn't even realize it. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how things went from bad to so much worse. It started with coffee. Innocent enough, right? Kaylin texted one Tuesday asking if I wanted to grab coffee before work. Sterling had already left for his early shift, so why not? This doesn't have to mean anything, I told myself as I applied mascara that morning. People get coffee with their boyfriend's siblings all the time. But the butterflies in my stomach told a different story. Kaylin was waiting at a table when I arrived. 2 coffees already ordered, mine exactly how I liked it. How did you know? I asked, surprised. He smiled. You mentioned it once. I pay attention. 3 simple words that Sterling could never seem to master. That coffee turned into lunch the next week. Then dinner when Sterling picked up an extra shift. Then texts that definitely crossed lines. Then meeting at Kaylin's apartment one night when Sterling thought I was out with girlfriends. I told myself it was just physical at first, just attraction, just chemistry, just something I needed to get out of my system. But it wasn't. Kaylin and I connected on a level that made what I had with Sterling look like a child's drawing next to a masterpiece. He doesn't deserve you, Kaylin whispered one night as we lay in his bed. The guilt and exhilaration battling inside me. He never has. And I believed him. I let myself believe that what we were doing wasn't so terrible because Sterling and I were basically over anyway. We were just going through the motions. I was doing Sterling a favor by not breaking up with him yet, giving him time to prepare. At least that's what I told myself. The lies started small. Happy hour with coworkers. A friend's emergency. Working late. But they grew like lies always do until I was living a double life. With Sterling, I was the same reliable girlfriend I'd always been. With Kaylin, I was passionate, adventurous, alive. We started making fun of Sterling behind his back. Cruel. I know. But it made the guilt easier to bear. If Sterling was ridiculous, if he was pathetic, then we weren't the bad guys in this story. Did you see his face when he couldn't figure out how to set up that new TV? Kaylin would laugh and I'd join in, even though a small part of me knew it was wrong. Or how about when he spent 3 hours researching which air fryer to buy, I'd add, and we'd collapse into more laughter. We were terrible, but being terrible together felt better than being empty alone. Things escalated quickly after that. We became bolder, riskier. Kaylin would come over when Sterling was at work, and we'd be together in the home I shared with his brother. The thrill of almost getting caught became part of the excitement, as disgusting as that sounds now. Then came the work trip. I told Sterling I needed to go away for a week with a coworker for a big project. In reality, Kaylin and I had planned a getaway. 7 days of pretending we weren't betraying someone we both claimed to care about. I can't wait to have you all to myself, Kaylin said as we planned it. No looking over our shoulders, no time limits, no Sterling. I should have felt awful. Instead, I felt free. The week away changed everything. Being with Kaylin without constraints, without the shadow of Sterling hanging over us, made me realize I didn't want to go back to my life before. I didn't want to pretend anymore. But we didn't just cross a line during that trip. We obliterated it. On our 3rd day away, standing on the balcony of our hotel room watching the sunset, Kaylin turned to me with an intensity I hadn't seen before. "Marry me," he said. Not a question, a statement. I should have laughed. We'd been sneaking around for less than 6 months. We were betraying his brother, my boyfriend, with every moment we spent together. It was insane. Instead, I said yes. We found a small chapel the next day. No white dress, no guests, just us, and a justice of the peace who didn't ask questions. I became Mrs. Kaylin in a sundress with sand, still between my toes from our morning walk. It should have been the most romantic day of my life. Instead, it felt surreal, like watching someone else make the biggest mistake of their life while being unable to stop them. But here's where things get really messed up. Our parents knew, not just mine, but Sterling and Kaylin's too. Kaylin had told them weeks before about us, about his plan to propose during our trip, and instead of telling him he was making a terrible mistake, instead of warning Sterling, they gave their blessing. They think you and Kaylin make more sense together, Kaylin told me after calling his parents. They've always thought so, even before we got together. I should have been horrified that our families were enabling this betrayal. Instead, I felt validated. If even our parents thought we were right for each other, how wrong could we really be? We got married on Thursday. On Sunday, I flew home alone, slipped my wedding ring into my purse, and walked back into the apartment I shared with Sterling as if nothing had changed. "How was the trip?" he asked, hugging me at the door. "Productive," I answered, the lie coming easily now. "Exhausting. I missed you," he said, and for a second, guilt threatened to swallow me whole. But then I remembered I was married to someone else now. I had chosen my path. All I had to do was keep up the charade until our lease ended in 3 months. Then I could leave Sterling without making myself homeless in the process. Kaylin and I continued our affair. Only now, it wasn't really an affair in our minds. We were married. Sterling was the outsider who didn't know it yet. We'd meet at his place or when Sterling was working. We stopped being as careful, confident in our secret. That's when I made my biggest mistake. I got sloppy and nearly got caught. Sterling almost walked in on us once when he came home early from work. After that close call, I panicked and came up with a new plan. I told Sterling I'd been cheating on him, but not with Kaylin. I invented a coworker, someone Sterling had never met and never would. I confessed to a fake affair to cover the real one. Sterling was devastated, of course, but instead of kicking me out, he wanted to work on things, wanted to forgive me. He suggested counseling, and I agreed, playing the part of the remorseful girlfriend while secretly laughing at his naivety with Kaylin. Can you believe he wants to fix things? I'd text Kaylin after what I told him I did. "That's Sterling for you," Kaylin would reply. Always the good guy. Too good for his own good. We were cruel and we didn't even see it. For 3 months, I went through the motions of reconciliation. I blocked my fictional affair partner's number. I went to therapy sessions and said all the right things. I let Sterling believe we were healing, that we had a future. In a twisted way, we were doing great. Sterling was trying so hard to make things work, showing me more attention than he had in years. One night, as we lay in bed, he turned to me with hope in his eyes. "I think I want to have a baby with you someday," he said softly. "Build a real future together." That's when my face went pale. Not because I was touched or scared of commitment, but because I knew I was pregnant. And it wasn't Sterling's baby. It was Kaylin's. I hadn't told Kaylin yet. I wasn't sure how to handle it. But Sterling's comment forced my hand. "What's wrong?" he asked, noticing my reaction. I told him the truth, part of it anyway. I was pregnant, but I lied and said it was from my affair with the fictional coworker. Sterling was furious. Understandably, he asked me to terminate the pregnancy or give the baby up for adoption. I refused. I told him I wanted to keep the baby and that I wanted him to be the father. What I didn't tell him was that I had no intention of staying with him. The lease would be up in a few weeks, and then Kaylin and I could start our life together with our child. I just needed to buy a little more time. "I need to think," Sterling said, leaving the apartment to clear his head. While he was gone, I called Kaylin. I told him, I said when he answered, "About us?" Kaylin sounded panicked. "No, about the baby. I said it was from the fake affair." Kaylin's relief was palpable. "So, we still have time. The lease is up soon, right?" 3 weeks, I confirmed. "Then we can stop pretending." What we didn't realize was that Sterling had become suspicious. Not of me and Kaylin specifically, but he knew something wasn't adding up about my story. He'd been paying more attention than I gave him credit for. When Sterling returned to the apartment that night, he was quiet. Too quiet. I should have recognized the calm before the storm, but I was too wrapped up in my own plans to notice. For the next few days, Sterling was distant. I assumed he was processing the pregnancy news, deciding whether he could raise another man's child. I never imagined he was actually piecing together the real betrayal. Then came the day that changed everything. I came home from work to find Sterling sitting at the kitchen table, his face hard, his eyes red. On the table in front of him was his phone, open to a conversation. My heart stopped when I realized what he was looking at. Somehow, he'd found messages between Kaylin and me, messages that made it clear not only that we were having an affair, but that we were married. I don't know how he found them. Maybe Kaylin had been careless with his phone. Maybe Sterling had been more suspicious than I realized and went looking. It doesn't really matter now. How long? Sterling asked, his voice steady despite the pain evident in his eyes. I could have lied again, could have denied it all, but I was tired of the charade and the lease was almost up anyway. So I smiled. God, I actually smiled and told him everything, that I was tired of pretending, that I was staying with him until the lease was over, that the baby was Kaylin's, that our parents knew. I watched something break in Sterling as I spoke. Not just his heart, but something deeper. His trust, his sense of reality. Everything he thought he knew had been a lie. He didn't yell, he didn't cry. He just stood up, walked to our bedroom, and packed a bag. Within 20 minutes, he was gone. I called Kaylin immediately. He knows, I told him. He found out about us. Kaylin swore, then asked, "Where did he go?" "I don't know," I answered truthfully. "He just left." We found out later that Sterling went to his sister Tessa's place. She'd been estranged from the family for years. They'd pushed her away when she came out as a lesbian. Sterling hadn't been close with her either, but she was the only family member who hadn't been in on our deception, the only one he could trust. For the next few days, everything was quiet. Too quiet. Kaylin moved in with me since there was no point in hiding anymore. We started making plans for after the baby came, trying to ignore the bomb we detonated in Sterling's life. "He'll get over it," Kaylin insisted. "He always does." But Sterling didn't get over it. 3 days after he left, he showed up at his parents' house with Tessa beside him. He'd gone there for answers to understand how his family could have betrayed him so completely. I wasn't there, but Kaylin's mom called afterward, hysterical. According to her, Sterling had arrived calm but determined. He'd asked his parents how long they'd known about Kaylin and me, how they could have kept it from him, how they could have attended our wedding without telling him. His father had the nerve to call it a difficult situation and said they didn't want to hurt him. Said that since Kaylin and I had already made our choice, they thought it would be easier on everyone to support it rather than fight it. Sterling's father called it the blissful lie, as if deceiving Sterling had been an act of kindness rather than cowardice. Tessa had started yelling then, defending her brother when no one else would. She pointed out the hypocrisy of parents who had disowned her for being honest about who she was while supporting Kaylin and me in our dishonesty. That's when Kaylin arrived. He'd gone to his parents' house after getting the panic call from his mother, walking into the middle of the confrontation. What happened next depends on who you ask. Kaylin's mother claims Sterling attacked without provocation. Tessa says Kaylin provoked Sterling by saying something unforgivable. That the baby I was carrying would be the only blood relative you'll ever have, Sterling. Either way, the result was the same. Sterling punched Kaylin hard, broke his nose, drew blood. His parents were screaming. Tessa was trying to pull Sterling back. And Kaylin was on the floor bleeding. That was 3 weeks ago. Since then, everything's fallen apart in ways I never anticipated. Kaylin needed surgery for his nose. Turns out Sterling did serious damage. The medical bills are piling up, and our insurance isn't covering all of it. Kaylin's been angry and distant, blaming me for not managing Sterling better, as if Sterling were my responsibility rather than his brother. Our parents have been calling nonstop, but not to check on us, to plead with us to make peace with Sterling, as if we're the ones who need to apologize, as if we're not the victims here. Sterling has cut off all contact with his parents and Kaylin. He's staying with Tessa permanently now, and I've heard through mutual friends that he's doing better than expected. He's going to therapy, making new friends through Tessa, even talking about moving to a new city for a fresh start. Meanwhile, Kaylin and I are drowning. The magical connection we thought we had doesn't seem so magical when faced with real-world problems. We fight constantly about money, about the baby, about Sterling. Especially about Sterling. "You didn't have to tell him everything," Kaylin accused me last night. "You could have eased him into it." As if there's a gentle way to tell someone you've married their brother behind their back. The worst part, people know. Word got out about what happened, and suddenly we're the villains in everyone's story. Friends have stopped calling. Coworkers avoid me. Kaylin's friends have largely sided with Sterling, calling what we did unforgivable. It's not like we killed someone, I complained to Kaylin. People cheat all the time. It's not the cheating, he admitted after a few drinks. It's everything else. The wedding, the lies, getting our parents involved, the baby. I'm 7 months pregnant now, and instead of the happy glow of expectant motherhood, I'm stressed and alone. Kaylin works late most nights, avoiding coming home to our fights. When he is home, he's distant, scrolling through his phone instead of talking to me. Sound familiar? It's exactly what I used to complain about with Sterling. The irony isn't lost on me. Sometimes I see Sterling around town. It's not a big city. He never approaches me, never makes a scene. He just turns and walks the other way. But the look in his eyes when he sees me, the mix of pain and pity, makes me feel smaller than I've ever felt. Last week, I saw him with a woman at the grocery store. They were laughing about something, completely wrapped up in each other. She was pretty in an effortless way, and the way he looked at her made my stomach twist. Not because I want him back. I don't. But because he never looked at me that way. Neither does Kaylin anymore. I made my choice and I'm living with it. But some days, in the quiet moments when I'm alone with my thoughts, I wonder if I made the wrong one. If all the lies and betrayal were worth it for what I have now. Kaylin and I are legally married, but there are days when it feels like we're strangers. The passion that once made our betrayal seem worthwhile has faded, leaving only the consequences. The baby kicks inside me, innocent to all the drama surrounding its existence. Sometimes I talk to my belly, promising things will get better, that Kaylin and I will figure it out. But even as I say the words, I don't believe them. Sterling isn't playing the victim, he is the victim, and deep down I know that. But admitting it would mean accepting that I'm the villain, and I'm not ready for that. So, I keep blaming him for overreacting, for not understanding, for ruining what could have been a peaceful resolution. The truth, there was never going to be a peaceful resolution to what we did. Some betrayals cut too deep for forgiveness. Kaylin and I made our bed. Now, we're lying in it, further apart with each passing day. And Sterling, he's rebuilding his life without us, becoming stronger while we weaken. They say karma comes for everyone eventually. I never believed it until now. But hey, we're still together, right? We won, even if winning feels an awful lot like losing these days. And maybe that's the real punishment. Getting exactly what we thought we wanted, only to realize it wasn't what we needed at all.